Afternoon. Um, Begin with talking about our opponent this weekend, Virginia. Uh, just watching them on film, it is very apparent that it is a well-coached football team, both sides of the ball, and a team that plays with a lot of energy and intensity. It's as I mentioned, on the offensive side of the ball, the scheme is well put together, um, all parts working together, uh, and defensively, a group that I think plays extremely hard. We saw a very athletic group this week in Texas. Um, I think we see a group this week that plays with a great deal of passion and intensity. We know that Virginia plays extremely well at home as well. So our guys, and what I talked to them yesterday about in particular, that this still comes down to our preparation and then meeting and exceeding our opponent's will to win. And I think that first home game for Virginia, playing Notre Dame, they will have a high will to win, and we're going to have to match and exceed that if we want to come out of Charlottesville with a victory. So that was a lot of the talking points yesterday for our team. On offense, obviously Mizell is the center point of what they're trying to accomplish. They're getting them the football in a number of different ways, so we've got to have a plan for him. Matt Johns is a solid quarterback, throws the ball well, manages the offense extremely well, can run it if he needs to. But I think you could see that he's very comfortable in running the offense that Coach London and Coach Fairchild have for him. Big receivers. They can cause you some problems with their size and length. And a coordinated offensive line, you can tell that they've played a lot of football together. You don't see a lot of missed assignments, a group that works very well together. Defensively, you've got Coach Archer and Coach Tenuto that have been around the game of football a long time, and they know defense, and they've got an answer for everything that you're doing offensively. They like to mix things up, play some man, some zone, single pressures. Last year, they had some very good players on defense that graduated to the NFL. They've got 3 returning starters on the defensive line. Quinn Blanding is an outstanding player. I think he was one of the better players in the conference last year. Accomplished corners, so a defense that can cause you some problems with some very good coaching. Very sound fundamentally, and can really get after you with a lot of different schemes and a lot of different looks. One of the best place kickers in the country in Fry. So again, another challenge for us, going on the road for the first time with our football team. And then we know that Virginia is going to play extremely well at home. They've shown that under Coach London. And again, I think we're going to have to really amp up our intensity and be ready to play against a team that's well coached. So with that, we'll open it up to questions and get it rolling.
Coach, the biggest question I heard people talk about after the game was whether Notre Dame's defense was that good or Texas's offense was that bad. After watching the tape and going over, how good do you think the defense can be?
Well, I think, Tom, that we did some really good things. Certainly, the measurement of a great defense will be in its longevity. I think we saw some good things last year, and then some injuries obviously derailed us. I think that will certainly be the case again this year. We're going to need to keep some key players on the field. But when you have a Kavari Russell back and a Joe Schmidt back, and Sheldon Day played at a higher level that he's ever played at, That bodes well for us. Keeping him healthy is absolutely crucial, and Jalen Smith. So I think all of our key players played at a higher level than they did last year. So I think first and foremost, I would say that our defense is so much more comfortable with the communication. We didn't have any issues with tempo. We actually drove them out of tempo, which is a first for our defense in the sense that, obviously that was a problem for us last year. So I would err on the fact that moving towards, saying that our defense is much improved from last year, but it is a small sample. It's one game.
Knowing the talent you have, do you think that there's a possibility of becoming a dominant team like the 2012 defense was?
I think if we stay injury-free, and if we can stay away from, obviously losing key personnel, I think we can continue to grow as a defense and continue to get better and play the kind of defense necessary, to compete nationally. That's what we're going to need. We certainly couldn't do that at the end of last year, but I think it's predicated on keeping these guys on the field.
And you talked about the physical play of CJ Prosise. Do you think is it part of his natural personality, or do you think the fact he used to be a defensive player and he's used to doing some hitting that helps him adjust?
It's an interesting question. He has certainly came in as a defensive player, but we moved him from defense because he wasn't a big hitter. So he may argue with that, but he just plays the game fast and physical, and he doesn't think about it. So I just think that he's not afraid of contact. He's somebody that, whether he's running the ball or he's, catching the ball, he's always played that fearless kind of game. And I just think it's probably more about the way he competes more than anything else.
It appears to me a couple times maybe he runs a little upright. So is that one of the concerns, is getting him to lower his pads?
Yeah, no question. I think we've got to do a lot more work in practice and getting him to finish off his runs with a lower pad level. And, we don't want to turn every run into a rugby scrum at the end. So, yeah, that's certainly something that he's aware of and that we're aware of, that he's got to finish off his runs. Yeah.
Hey, Coach, you talked about Josh Adams last week and how he's a really quick learner. I was wondering if you could go a little bit more specific into pass protection and why it's so difficult for freshmen who come in to be able to pick that up in college.
Well, it's the post-snap reads. It's not necessarily what happens prior to the snap, because, if you could use this analogy, it's just seeing the birds lined up, and then all of a sudden they move, and it's being able to pick them up after the snap. And Josh does a pretty good job of recognizing the movement after the snap. That's generally the learning curve for the younger players, is that they're good on the board, they can see it and draw it up, but then they move, and they weren't in that position after the snap. And so some take a little more time with that concept of pre-snap, post-snap. Josh seemed to pick that up, and that's just his ability to learn quicker than others, and consequently, it helps him in pass protection.
And what do you think Coach Van Gorder learned last year from his defense that's helped him maybe adjust in year two?
Well, I think the first thing was, communication through our tempo and making sure that we could get our calls in, obviously working with the personnel that we have and developing our personnel to get to that end. It doesn't matter what we know, it's what our players know. So I think Coach and his staff on the defensive side of the ball, we've done a great job of making sure that they know what we know, and then communicating that. I think that's been, obviously something that we've focused on, and then expectations, within the unit. What is expected of them on a day-to-day basis, and then finally, I think, playing this defense is a little bit different than the defense that a lot of these guys were part of earlier in their careers. So, driving home what the key elements are to be successful in this defense. And that was just a process that took time.
Coach, other than being the only offensive lineman not blamed for a false start, what was your evaluation of Mike McGlinchey?
I thought Mike did some really, really good things. He can make up for some things because of his length and athleticism. For example, he picked up a corner blitz late. He was engaged on a defensive lineman, picked it up late, and he's so long he was able to get out of that block, get a hand on the corner. Malik was able to step up and complete a big play for us. So Mike's athletic ability can really help him out at times. But I thought his sets were really good. I thought for, it's not really his first start, but, getting in there from start to finish, I thought he did very well. I think Harry's comments were, we got to continue to work together as a unit. I think sometimes we get caught up on doing just, our job, but that group has to work together. And I think that's where Mike will continue to get better.
And with Will, he's on the scouting report, everybody's looking at him, yet he was able to have the day he had. What is it? Why can he still break out of that and still have that sort of a day when defenses are now keyed on him?
Well, it's kind of one of those things where it's hard to double cover him where he is. He's to the wide field. If you roll the coverage to him, you have to play double zone, which is going to open up a lot of things in the running game. And so we kind of took our, shots when we got him, and we'll continue to do that. He's also a really good route runner and can find himself open. And I think I said this in the press conference after the game, we're not afraid to throw the ball to the wide field and push it over there where some teams are a little bit hesitant at times. So we're going to find him. We're going to target him. He's going to get the football each and every week. And he's in a position where he's difficult to double.
And with CJ making the switch to running back, what was the evolution? What were the hardest things for him? I mean, in terms of learning how to pass protect, learning how to, I know he says he still has to run low.
Yeah.
What's the evolution of that?
I think the fundamentals, really, of the position, stance, pocket for taking handoffs, the right steps. I think really why he's been able to move into the position that he is in is because of his physical ability, his maturity, and understanding the offense. But it's certainly a work in progress as it relates to the fundamentals. And you're not seeing some of the things that I'm seeing fundamentally that need to continue to grow for him. Because they could end up hurting us, down the road if we don't get better at them. But and he knows that too. So it's the work that we have to do every day in practice on the fundamentals of the position that are really centered to his development.
Coach, Jalen Smith's obviously a very special talent. I think, during one drive he lined up as a drop-in, covered a guy in the slot, played Mike linebacker. In terms of a lot of the guys that you coached, where does he compare, and is he maybe the greatest or most versatile defensive player that you've had to coach?
It's a short answer. I haven't coached a player like him before. Period. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say. He just, your statement about what he can do is why he is a unique talent. He can line up with his hand on the ground. He can cover the inside receiver. He can play in the box. He can tackle in open space. There's not much he can't do. He's a rare defensive player, and it's just fun watching him play.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brian, following up on Jalen, had you not had a need at weak side linebacker, would you have necessarily moved him there, or did you really want to make sure that he was more of the action, that you didn't like teams running away from him when he was outside?
Well, the development of the defense and where he is, it puts him in a position on those rundowns where we can get him into the center of the action. You know, if he was, you can displace him, you know, as the Sam linebacker, and we didn't want that. And we quite frankly found that James Onwualu is one of the best cover down linebackers that we have, and so it really was about getting him in the center of action, and that will linebacker position keeps him around the action as much as we can, and we can even dictate terms, and you know, in a sense that even if you want to go 2 by 2 and try to get him out of the box, we can even dictate that and keep him in there. So it was really more, Eric, about keeping him in the center of our defense than anything else.
You know, when you talk to scouts that come and watch your practices and so forth, do they talk about him as an inside or outside linebacker in his future?
I think that they are very similar in their evaluation, in that he has great versatility for them. And, you know, he's almost 250 pounds, so he can play inside, he can play outside. He provides a unique opportunity even for those at the next level that because he can run and rush the passer, he can play both inside and outside, and that's very unique for a defensive player.
I know that he, you know, there's all kinds of projections about what he would be in the 2016 draft, and he sees those, and yet he seems so focused on what's going on with this particular team. Is that unusual for a kid? Do you think that that's authentic, that he really has put that stuff kind of on the back burner?
Yeah, I think he has. I think he understands that the more success that we have as a team, he'll gain that leverage individually moving forward, and all of our players will. The more success you have as a team is going to garner you more interest individually. So they've all focused on the team and how they play as a team. And certainly what they do out there is going to be evaluated certainly by every, you know, NFL team. But they're committed to the football team first because they know the success that the team has is going to bring on success for them individually later.
We in this room have seen a lot of John Tenuta defense, obviously. I'm curious, do you feel like he's a different scheme at all than he was when he was here, or is he conceptually pretty similar? And also, is he similar at all to what you guys saw against Arizona State last year?
Well, he has a long resume of different you know, defensive schemes, and he certainly is not a bend but don't break defensive coordinator. He likes to be controlling, you know, tempo, and he's aggressive. But all defensive coaches, all offensive coaches are going to be beholden to the players that they have and the personnel. And so I think, you know, I don't want to speak for John. I've got my own problems, but I'm certain that he's probably, you know, running his defense based upon the personnel that they have this year. And so we can only go by what we've seen this year and a little bit of last year and formulate a game plan based upon what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Last one from me. Torrey, both last year and just a little bit this year, he seems to have a comfort level with being able to carry the football beyond being a receiver. Is that something you saw of him when he was in high school, and can you just talk about that?
Yeah, he just very natural with the football, and I think we felt comfortable with him very early on in his career that he was somebody that some guys, you know, don't look quite as comfortable with the ball in their hand, and he just always had a knack for run after the catch and jet sweeps and things of that nature. And so that's why he's always been targeted as somebody to play inside, and he'll continue to do that.
Hey, Brian. From a running back standpoint, I'm curious how you divide up your reps now. Obviously, Procise have been getting a large amount of 1 reps. Does he now get more, or does Adams pick up more of that, or Williams? I'm just curious kind of how you prepare them going forward.
Well, certainly without Torian in the mix, the trickle down will be that Dexter gets more reps, and he now is included in the rotation. We like to rotate 3 backs, but first team reps would go to CJ, and then we like to make certain that all 3 of them run with the first group at some time. Now, CJ would get more of those reps, but all 3 of them would run with the first group. CJ would not run with the second group. Josh and Dexter would take all of those. But we do like to get all 3 of them to run with the first group.
I think CJ had 19 carries. Was that right on
I believe
on
you're
Saturday?
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
is that something you're comfortable doing with him every week, or possibly more?
I think given the circumstances of the game, that seems to be about right. 15 carries, upwards of 20 carries for your running backs. And certainly the other 2 backs are going to be involved as well, including Malik. We had over 50 on Saturday, so I don't know if we'll average 50 each week. But no, we don't feel like we're putting him in a position of taxing him at that number.
What were your impressions of Malik overall, having gone